Welcome to the Opportunity Zones podcast. I'm Jimmy Atkinson, and joining me on today's show is OZ Insiders member Connie Rathbone. Connie is a securities attorney based in Boise, Idaho. Connie, great to see you. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you, Jimmy. I'm great. I'm excited about the new bill, and I just want to give you a big props for all of the information that you provide to the Opportunity Zone community. What you have been doing in terms of summarizing and giving additional data has just been really, really worthwhile. And in fact, in the article we're going to talk about, I used some of Jimmy's information. So I really appreciate you doing that for the industry.
Well, thanks, Connie. It's my day job, so I do what I can to put out as much Opportunity Zone related content as I can, as quickly as I can, and as often as I can. And OZ 2.0 certainly has come to the forefront of all the content that we have produced over here at opportunityzones.com in 2025. And I think that's going to continue for the next couple of years, at least as the OZ 2.0 program unfolds and we get clarification from IRS and we adopt best practices as an industry. You referenced that article. You recently wrote an article for the New York Law Review about the new Opportunity Zone incentives created by Trump's mega bill, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. What's the article about, and why did you write it?
Well, I wrote the article because I wanted my friends and colleagues and everyone in the industry to get the earliest information they could on the Big Beautiful Bill. And I also, another goal was to pair a couple of provisions of the bill together so that people could see how they can take advantage of the new Opportunity Zone Act along with, and the one I chose was the bonus depreciation rules to really maximize the benefits to their investors and their projects.
Yeah, I forget sometimes as the founder of OpportunityZones.com that the bill that was signed into law back in July does more than just create Opportunity Zones 2.0. It does more than just expand and make permanent opportunity zones. There's a whole lot of other stuff in there. So could you talk to me a little bit more about what are some other components that are contained within that big tax bill and which one of them work best or pair best with OZ 2.0?
Well, Jimmy, like you, I have been so focused on the Opportunity Zone part that my knowledge about everything that's in the bill is quite limited, but I did have a couple of particular things. Of course, it made permanent the tax cuts that had been originally documented in 2017. But then the other one that I think is just really huge and people need to pay attention to are the new bonus depreciation rules. And because Trump was so focused on bringing manufacturing back to America, they included a remarkable provision about bonus depreciation related to manufacturing facilities. And as we go through the article that I wrote, I give examples of how the bonus depreciation works without opportunity zones, and then also how it works when you pair it with opportunity zones. And so my goal there was just to get people thinking outside the box about evaluating everything that's in the bill and how can I pick and choose a few of those items, put them together to get much, much better results for the projects that we're working on. And like you, I've been involved in the industry. I did the first and biggest opportunity fund in Oregon. We put out that offering for $335 million to build two commercial developments. And we put that offering out before the regulations were promulgated. So if you know anything about securities work, you can imagine the number of risk factors that I put into that offering because we didn't know what the IRS was going to do in terms of regulations. And since that, one of our projects in that offering is complete. It's a convention hotel in Salem. The other we're still working on because it was located in Portland and it was supposed to be office. And as you may know, the downtown Portland office market is really struggling post-COVID and post disruption from a variety of things. But that was an amazing offering, and the original regulations were delayed 2 years, and we're really hoping that that doesn't happen with Opportunity Zone 2.0. But the original program was really hampered by the fact that COVID and the shutdowns came up for 2 years. The regulations were delayed for 2 years. And so that really did damage the start of the Opportunity Zone program. It was getting a lot of really good momentum. It was interesting because I was out teaching and educating everybody about the program. What we learned with this large offering that I did is that harder to convince than the investors was their CPAs, who were not that familiar with the program and were advising their investors not to invest. And so not only did we undertake an effort to teach investors and real estate brokers and other real estate professionals about the program, but then we had to start giving classes for CPAs so that they could better understand the program.
So you mentioned bonus depreciation and how that might be able to be coupled with an opportunity zone project. For those who may be unfamiliar, what is depreciation? First of all, maybe you can walk us through what does that even mean? And two, what is bonus depreciation? How is it even better than just standard depreciation?
Sure. Sure. So we're kind of jumping ahead of Opportunity 2.0, but let's shift over to depreciation. Okay, so when you hold a capital asset, excuse me, so and this bonus depreciation applies in the area of manufacturing facilities. So let's just take a manufacturing facility example. So if you are going to build a manufacturing facility anywhere in the United States, and it also works with acquiring a manufacturing facility, but let's focus on building for purposes of this so that people understand. So you're gonna buy a big piece of land. Let's say it's gonna be $10 million for your land, because you have to have a lot of space for your facility. You have to have a lot of space for parking for your employees, etc. So you pay $10 million for your land that's zoned manufacturing, and then let's just use an example. We're going to put $100 million into building the facility, putting the equipment and fixtures in the facility. Now, in the past, you would depreciate that building. You don't depreciate the land, but you would depreciate the building and the equipment and the facilities, depending on what you're doing. Depending on the different tax rules you're using, you would depreciate it either over from between 10 and 30 years. So let's say you're going to take that $100 million depreciation 1/30th each year over the next 30 years. When you sell that asset, however much of that depreciation you have taken, you have to recapture. In other words, you add that back in, and you don't, that's going to be part of your gain when you add it back in. So the new bonus depreciation rule says that if you build a manufacturing facility anywhere in the United States, you can take 100% of the value of the improvements, the equipment, and the fixtures as depreciation in the first year. So you can take $100,000 in depreciation the first year. You can take in that first year because, of course, you have basis in it, right? You have paid that money out to build your manufacturing facility. So you get to take it off your taxes that first year, which means that if you sell the manufacturing facility in 10 years, again, you have to recapture that depreciation, but you've effectively had 10 years to use the government's tax money for the benefit of your facility and your company and your investors, etc. So that was a really, really big incentive that was added in the bill. that
and the tax
100% bonus depreciation.
and the tax consequences of taking depreciation, whether it's straight line depreciation or bonus depreciation, is you can use that depreciation to offset income, right? Offset passive
Correct.
income, I think. Is that right?
Well, you can use it that the depreciation can offset all income
Okay.
in the, in the ordinary course of business. So if you make $100 million, you can take that depreciation against the $100 million that you make. So, and you probably aren't going to be able to take that $100 million. I mean, use it in the first year. So that means you'll have a tax loss carry forward that you can use in subsequent years. Once again, you have to recapture it when you sell it, which means you have to add that back on. So you don't get to take that as a tax deduction forever, but you have been able to use that tax deduction.
And that depreciation recapture gets taxed at its own special rate, depending on a variety of factors. But I think it's usually 20 to 25%, right, upon sale.
When an opportunity zone investor puts their capital gains into an entity, they don't have any basis for their investment until they pay their taxes. And so what that means is because you put in free money, gains, and you haven't paid your taxes yet, your inside basis is zero in that investment. The day you pay your taxes, you have basis. And so with the bonus depreciation, when you're pairing that with the opportunity zone program, you don't get to take the bonus depreciation in the first year because you have no basis yet, but you can take it in the year that you pay your taxes and have basis. Now, with the Opportunity Zone 1.0 and 2.0, the wow factor is I get a 100% step up in basis when I pay my taxes, which means there is no recapture of depreciation. So that $1 million that you were able to depreciate when you sell your asset in 10 years and 1 day, because we still have our 10-year hold period, right? There is no recapture of depreciation. So think about how that just skyrockets the returns to the investors, because they have had the ability to take 100% of the value of the facility, the equipment, and the fixtures, and they never have to pay tax on that depreciated amount. And so when you think about this, whether it's 1.0, this applies now because the Opportunity Zone program is not effective, the new one, until January 1, 2027. But the bonus depreciation rules are effective this year. And so if what you have invested in is the construction or the creation of a manufacturing facility, you get that benefit right now. And you can see that that $100 million is really going to kick up your returns. And so it is it's a crazy good combination of benefits. That's an official legal term, crazy good.
Crazy good. I love
Sometimes,
that.
yeah, sometimes I speak Latin, and I'll try not to speak Latin on this podcast, but it is just a really good combination of benefits from the act, putting the bonus depreciation together with the Opportunity Zone program.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Those are the two big benefits after achieving a 10-year hold. The opportunity zone investment appreciates tax free once you reach the 10-year hold,
Correct.
and depreciation recapture gets completely eliminated, completely
Eliminated.
wiped out. All right, so that's probably your best bet for pairing a couple different parts of that tax bill, bonus depreciation and opportunity zones together. Let's focus now on OZ 2.0, Connie. That was the basis of your article. The
Right.
foundation of your article was to walk through a lot of the changes in OZ 2.0. I've covered the changes quite a bit here on the podcast over
Sure.
the last few weeks, but I'm curious to hear how you characterize the changes to OZ 2.0. What has you most excited about the OZ 2.0 program that takes full effect on January 1, 2027.
Right. And you said that you have covered it several times on your podcast, and I think it's really good to cover it and cover it and recover it.
Agreed.
I was
Agreed.
talking to clients yesterday about whether the Opportunity Zone program would work for a development that they're wanting to do in Hood River, Oregon. And I was explaining everything, and there is so much in the bill that people get overwhelmed and confused. So the more we can break it down into bite-sized, easy to understand provisions about the benefits, the better people will be able to remember it and implement it, and most importantly, not be afraid of it. And so just a very quick reminder on 1.0. It was deferring paying your taxes. You can defer paying your gain, but that was only till 2026, so that's over in a year. When it first started, there were two different step up in bases, up to a 50% step up in basis when you paid your tax. Both of those are gone now. So if you didn't qualify for one of those, when you pay tax on the capital gains you invested in 2026, you have to pay tax on 100% of what you invested. And then the last benefit was the wow factor, no tax on the gain during the hold period. And since an awful lot of these relate to construction of something, if you know what you're doing, the facility or the development that you're making is worth more than you have in it when you get it done. Getting the certificate of occupancy, typically you get a bump in value, and then you're going to have appreciation for the hold period. And remember that the hold period is not just 10 years. The hold period is between 10 and 30 years. So at the end of 10 years, if that's not a great market to sell, you don't have to. You can hold it for 30 years. And the new program gave a nice little benefit related to that. And so when you sell, there's no tax on the appreciation. So that's just a really quick reminder of Opportunity Zone 1.0. Now moving to 2.0. And I'm going to claim a lot of credit for being very proactive on this, because ever since I got very familiar and knowledgeable about 1.0, I have said to people like Shay Hawkins, people in the industry, others, they need to just make this tax payment a rolling period so that it doesn't have a sunset. Now, Shay told me one day, oh, no, Connie, they won't do that because they always need to have the Opportunity Zone program come up so that they can use it as leverage in their negotiations. Okay, so that's politics for you. And I'm to a large extent, don't have any great love of that kind of a political maneuver. And the most surprising is that they were able to implement my idea and make the Opportunity Zone program permanent, that it is a rolling tax payment period. So under 2.0, you make an investment on January 2nd, 2027, and you pay your taxes in 5 years. 5 years from the date of your investment. When you pay those taxes, you get a 10% step up in basis. So now everybody is going to get a step up in basis. That benefit does not time out anymore. And it is just a rolling period. It does not have an end. They made it permanent. That was a really hard element for the legislature to obtain. I really praise Senator Crapo, the head of finance, and his staff for really getting that big pull of making the program permanently, because that takes the uncertainty out. And so you pay your taxes at the end of 5 years, you pay it on 90%, and then you just go forward. So that was the biggest and best achievement that we had in the program, the rolling 5-year deferral period. So one of the other things that they've done is that in Opportunity Zone 2.0, there is going to be a whole new selection of zones. And that new selection of zones, those will be in place as of January 1, 2027. Now, what I'm telling to my clients and friends that are in real estate is that we have some example likely zones. EIG and Novogradac have put together maps showing where zones will likely, or where they would be qualified to be located. Of course, not all of those zones can be selected because there's a limit on how many zones each state can select, but people need to be lobbying their governors and their economic development departments. In Idaho, where I sit, it's the Commerce Department, the Idaho Commerce Department that's going to assist the governor in selecting these. And so people need to be being proactive and seeing areas that they would like to include in a zone and advocate for those areas. So that's going to be very different than last year, because the way I perceived the first Opportunity Zone program is that there was this big tax bill and the CPAs were all out teaching in January and February and March. We're all out teaching about all of the new provisions in the tax bill. But the Opportunity Zone program was a tiny little kernel that nobody really paid any attention to until about March. And that's when I started really paying attention to it and learning about it. And so then people started saying, oh, this is pretty big. And in fact, Opportunity Zone 1.0 brought in, but the estimates are between about 160 billion and 250 billion in development in disadvantaged areas. So it's been one of the most successful programs, I think, ever implemented. And remember that that development in those dollars is after the 2-year delay from the COVID shutdowns and the regulations, because there was a lot of activity and then it kind of slumped when the COVID shutdowns came, and then finally the regulations came, and then it finally started ticking up again. So we can only imagine how much it would have raised if there hadn't been that 2-year slump. And so for Opportunity Zones 2.0, be advocating, because those zones are going to be identified by January 1, 2027. And a nice little benefit that the legislature did was they're going to allow the current zones to remain effective until the end of 2028. Now, there will be some overlap in zones. In other words, some of the zones that are identified now will continue to be identified. Some of the zones that are identified now, probably downtown Portland and Northwest Portland, will be disqualified. But those zones will remain effective for development through 2028. And then there will also be new zones. Now, the legislature tightened up the qualification criteria. And so the way Jimmy and others have estimated is that it will create probably about 20 or 22% fewer qualified areas, which is all the more reason that people need to figure out where the qualified areas are and advocate for the zones that they would like to see qualified as zones in the program.
Yeah, that's going to be a process that's going to unfold throughout the course of 2026. The official opening date for the determination period for each state starts July 1, 2026. Each state has up to 120 days to determine their nominations that they present to the Treasury Department of the United States, which really means that each state's going to have to turn in their list of Opportunity Zone nominations toward the end of October. Some will do it before then, though. Some states might be ready to go with their nominations in July or August. So don't wait until January of 2027 to start lobbying your state's governor's
Absolutely
office.
not.
Start doing it now.
Start doing it now.
And especially do it in 2026. Well, that's impressive, Connie, that you started recognizing Opportunity Zones and paying attention to it in March of 2018, but still a little bit late to the game you were, right? And everybody was. I didn't start paying
Everybody
attention.
was.
I didn't start
Yeah.
paying attention to opportunities zones until August of 2018. So you've got me
Yeah.
beat by by 5 months
A few
at
months.
least.
How about that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, pretty good.
Well, I happen to be doing a lot of tenant in common workout work for the prior 10 years. And that was ending about that time. And so I saw this opportunity zone program and said, hey, this is a new opportunity for me to remake my practice. And that's what happened. So I've talked about the main provisions of the program. It's now permanent. There's a 5-year tax payment, 10% step up in basis. We still have the provision that there's no tax on the gain during the hold period. They made that a little sweeter by identifying what happens at the end of 30 years, because in the old bill, they didn't say anything about what happens. Let's say you hold it for 35 years. The thought was you would just lose all the benefits. But what they added to this bill was to say, at the end of 30 years, you get a step up in basis to the fair market value at the end of 30 years. And then if you hold it for another 5 years, the gain that accrues for that last 5 years, you have to pay tax on. So that was a great clarification of that 10 to 30 year period.
Yeah,
Now,
the IRS regulations on OZ 1.0 stated that you had to transact by the end of 2047, no matter when you came into the program. If you come into the
right.
program in 2025 or 2026, that
Mhm.
means you only get a 21 or a 22-year holding period tax free. But it wasn't. I don't know if they ever made clear that you have to have a sale by then, or maybe you could take a step up to fair market value on that date. That wasn't really clarified, and maybe
It
they'll clarify
wasn't
that at some
clear.
point. Yeah.
It wasn't
So it's
clear,
it's
but it
nice
is
that in the
now. Yeah.
statute this time it is very clear for OZ
Yeah.
2.0. I
Yeah,
agree.
yeah. And so then there are a couple of other items that really are great. And I'm going to pat myself on the back right now, just once again, because for the last several years, I have been talking about the big tenant in common sponsors about their need to go rural, because post COVID, all of the electronic age, people are working from home, people are fleeing metropolitan areas to get out into the country, into smaller communities, to get the benefits of small town America. And I happen to be working on a 1,200-acre rural development in Burns, Oregon. That's No Place, Oregon, kind of southeast central type Oregon. And it's 1,200 acres, and we're building a city within a city. Burns died 35 years ago when the mill closed, and it has desperately needed housing and economic development. And so we're putting that together. So think about the benefits that I already talked about with the bonus depreciation. One of the provisions of 1.0 and 2.0 is that if you buy improved property in an opportunity fund, you have to meet a substantial improvement requirement, meaning you have to reinvest the value of the improvement. So the purchase price less the value of the land. So let's take our manufacturing facility and let's say we bought that. So we got $100 million in the value of the improvements. You would have to reinvest. Now you don't have that reinvestment or the substantial improvement requirement if it's original use, if you bought bare land. But if you buy something improved, you have to put in the value of the improvement. The benefit that they are making for rural development is that if you buy something that's improved and you're going to continue to improve it, you only have to substantially improve 50%, not 100% of the value of the improvements. So that is much easier to do if you buy an apartment complex and you're going to do some major remodeling. You're a lot more likely to be able to meet that 50% improvement requirement rather than the 100%. And plus, with rural, when you pay your taxes at the end of 5 years, you get a 30% step up in basis instead of a 10% step up in basis. So when you think about that and put that same manufacturing facility in a rural opportunity zone, then you're stacking up the opportunity zone benefits, the rural development benefits, and the bonus depreciation benefits. And you can make the return numbers on a project like that once again be even more crazy good. And so all of these things that you're stacking together go into the numbers for the project, and they just increase by multiples the returns that the people are going to get. In our Burns project, our planner, we've got a great planner, and he was able to get us incentives so that the first $10 million of infrastructure for roads and utilities, et cetera, is coming from the state and the county and the federal government, et cetera. That dramatically increases the return to the investors. He's got one provision where we get 7% back of the value on each project related to the property taxes. So as you're thinking about development, it's about stacking benefits. And when you can stack the incentives and the property tax rebates and the rural development benefits and the bonus depreciation, all of those things, it just makes the benefits to the investors so much greater.
Yeah, I think an opportunity zone tax incentive layered on top of a good deal can make a good deal great. And then you start, well, now it's in a rural opportunity zone. It can make a great deal phenomenal. And now you're talking about, hey, we're going to get some free money from the local government or the federal government on top of all that. It takes a phenomenal deal and makes it unbelievably phenomenal.
Yeah,
I
it
think
does. It makes
that's
it
the way I
crazy
like to look at
good.
it. Yeah.
It makes it crazy good. Now, the warning or the we need to think about, Jimmy, I've been practicing for about 38 years. I know that it looks impossible that I could have practiced that long. I had another career before that too. For my entire 38-year career, I have advised people doing 1031 exchanges to not buy a property in a 1031 exchange that you would not buy with clean money, because the asset is the property, and a 1031 exchange does not turn a bad asset into a good asset. And for 38 years, my clients have ignored that advice. I make the same advice with an opportunity zone project. You have to have a good, successful project, because a tax benefit on a failed project doesn't get you very far. So you've got to have a good project, and you need to believe that you would invest into it with clean money before you put your capital gains into it, because that's letting the tax tail wag the dog. And we don't recommend that. But there are so many great projects out there that you can put opportunity zone funds into. People can find them on your website, on Pitch Day. There's other organizations that list opportunity zone projects. Just keep your head up and your eyes open and your ears open, and you will come across opportunity zone projects that are good to invest in.
Absolutely. Yeah. And to reiterate, opportunity zones, that tax incentive applies to the profits essentially of the investment. You know, how much did it appreciate over 10 plus years? If it didn't depreciate, if it wasn't profitable, then there is no tax benefit. So that's a great way to
That's
look at
right.
it. You can't do anything for a deal that doesn't pencil, a deal that is bad. Connie, we got a few minutes left before we got to wrap up. I'm curious, what are some of your bold predictions for Opportunity
Oh my
Zones
gosh.
2.0?
Well, I think that there could be a lull, because there's some time between now and when the new program begins. I'm not seeing that lull happen now, because people have capital gains now and they need to get them invested. My guess is that the second half of 2026 is going to be pretty quiet, because people may be able to hold their funds and invest beginning in 2027. But I believe this is going to skyrocket and be even better than it has ever been before. Again, fewer zones, okay? Downtown Portland and northwest Portland probably should never have been identified, but they did qualify for the census. But areas like that will likely come out. And there may be some areas that were originally designated that come out that no longer qualify because the development in QOZ 1.0 has been so successful. It's no longer a disadvantaged area. But there's also going to be areas where infrastructure has been built and it still qualifies. And so, you know, my prediction is that this is just going to become more and more well-known, and that people are going to start putting this in their thinking caps when they're talking about, they're envisioning a development of some kind. And should I try to locate it in an opportunity zone, or does it have to be in a different place? And so my boldest prediction is that this is just going to become so much better known that most people who are real estate professionals in one way or another at least think about it. And, you know, my goal in life is to teach every real estate professional about opportunity zones. I think anybody that deals with real estate should have a working knowledge. I've got a 150-page information packet that I can send to anyone that's interested. They just can email me. And if they're having trouble sleeping, just put it on your nightstand and pick it up, and it's great for insomnia. But the two best pieces in that are, I've got an opportunity 1.0 and an opportunity 2.0 checklist. So you can pull those out and say, oh yeah, here's a reminder of the things that Connie and Jimmy talk about, and post those on your bulletin board, and it will cause you to think about whether opportunity zone and other benefits can help this development.
I love it, Connie. Well, it's been great catching up with you today and getting your thoughts on Opportunity Zones 2.0. And I learned a thing or two about bonus depreciation as well. So
Oh,
thanks for
good.
joining today. Hey, before we go, where can our audience go to learn more about you and your firm?
My firm is VF Law. So my email is crathbone, RATHBONE, at V as in Victor, F as in Frank, -law.com. And my cell phone that I have with me all day, every day, and take every kind of call on is 503-704-2795. And again, anyone who is interested in my packet of information can send an email and we'll get that out to you. It's got about 5 hours worth of class materials and articles and regulation and legislation, etc.
Yeah, I had you send me that packet a few years ago. I can only imagine that it's
Updated now.
I know it must be updated now. I'm looking forward to getting my hands on it. You got to send me that one. And yeah, I did have to
We'll do that.
have you mute your cell phone before we join the show, because otherwise I know you get a lot of calls throughout the day.
Yeah,
So
and I did mute it, and that was good, but I still kind of had to get them to go away and not vibrate, distracting me.
Well, it's a good problem to have, all that business
Yes.
coming to you, Connie. Well, look, thanks for joining today. For my audience today, if you enjoyed today's episode, hit that like button, give us a thumbs up. We're going to have show notes available on today's episode, as we always do, at opportunityzones.com/podcast. I'll be sure to link to Connie's email address so you can reach out to her and get that information packet on Opportunity Zones. And we'll post her cell phone number on there too, so you can blow her up via her cell phone number. So check that out if you want to read more about today's show or get Connie's contact information. Again, that link is opportunityzones.com/podcast. And please also be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube or your favorite podcast listening app to always get the latest episodes from us here at opportunityzones.com. Connie, it's been a pleasure. Thanks again for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. And I want to give props to your OZ insiders. If anybody really wants to keep up on the latest and greatest, that's a good place to join. And Jimmy, I'll see you in December at the Novogradacs Opportunity Zone Conference.
Looking forward to it. Awesome. Thanks, Connie.
All right. Thanks.